check in.
Excuse me. There it is. Facebook came in first.
Check audio. Can you hear me on audio?
Oh, there's a delay, but yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna grab my coat and we'll get started. All right, let's go ahead and get this live stream started. I'm here with Miss Maria Medell.
Hi, everyone.
And we will kick off the Converge PoE Texas live stream with Paul Richards from PTZ Optics. Let me go ahead and we're getting started here with the introduction. I got a phone call ringing. Hey everybody, this is Tyler Andrews here with PoE Texas, and we are doing the Converge PoE Texas live stream. We're very excited today because we have a special guest, Paul Richards from PTZ Optics, and he's an expert in live streaming and camera equipment. So if you're interested in getting the most out of your network infrastructure, including your live streaming system, you're in the right place. Most importantly, though, we want to hear from you. As we're talking today about streaming, AV systems, hit the chat lines and ask us the hard questions and give us your input on what tough projects you would like to learn about so we can do follow-up videos and find out what you want to know. And don't forget to stick around for our exclusive announcements on some new technology everyone working with PoE should have. All right, let's get started. All right, everybody. So this is, as you know me, I'm Tyler Andrews, the CEO here at PoE Texas, and my co-host, Miss Maria Medell. Before we introduce our guest host today, this may be the first live stream for a lot of people out there, and a couple of our guests from last time, by the way, go back and watch the previous show from last time, mentioned they hadn't commented on a live stream before. So we wanted to try and do a demo to show you how to do that. We haven't been able to get that set up. But what you do is if you're looking at Facebook or YouTube, look down on the, let's see, get this handout here, down on this side, down the lower left side. And what you're going to see is you're going to see a place for a comment. Just go ahead and write in your comments. Maria here has got your comments all up on a screen. We made sure all of our comments are there. And so, for example, we got Paul from PTZ Optics. He's already texted in. He said he's happy to be here. Thank you, Paul. And Tess, we appreciate you guys being here. So just wanted to make sure you could see that on Facebook and live stream. So I'm going to turn it over to Maria to introduce our guest host today.
Thank you. So hi everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. I wanted to introduce you all to our guest expert, Mr. Paul Richards. So aside from being the Chief Streaming Officer at PTZ Optics, Paul is also a father and a husband and an author. Pennsylvania. To Paul donating live stream equipment to that church, Village Lutheran, and his book, Helping Your Church Livestream, was created.
All right, let's bring Paul on. Hey, Paul. Welcome to the Converge PoE Texas live stream.
I'm so happy to be here. That was such a beautiful introduction.
Thanks for
Can't wait
joining us today, Paul.
to join.
All right.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Paul. And we're honored to have you here on our live stream. And let me just start by personally thanking you for inviting me to your live stream multiple times. And for those of you who don't know, about 3 weeks after I joined PoE Texas, Paul had me right onto his live stream with PTZ Optics, and it was great. And if you're really curious to see that video or any other great content about broadcasting and streaming, check out the PTZ Optic video on YouTube, Facebook. Paul, where do you keep all your videos right now?
We really do keep them on Facebook and YouTube. They're both great places to communicate with us. We're always checking the comments and replying, so it's a great place to watch the videos and interact with our company.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, let's just take advantage of Paul's experience and appreciate having him on board. Paul, let's just dive into some questions for you. And I do have a first question for you. What would you say to someone at a church or who does a production who's on the fence on whether to get into live streaming?
Well, for churches specifically, I wrote this book because maybe about 5 years ago, the biggest fear for churches getting into live streaming was, if we live stream our services to the internet, are people not going to come into church on Sunday? Are they just going to stay at home? And that was a fear about 5 years ago. And so it is a fear that a lot of church leadership that are maybe the elders of the community have about social media and the internet and the online world. And I hope that being able to tell my personal story about my wife, who is very connected with her hometown church, who had to move away, and I kind of had a lightning bolt, and I said, wow, my wife's not the only person who's deeply loves their church that has had to move away and wants to have a way to be connected. And I've worked with so many churches, and I've outlined in the book a lot about just stories to tell about churches that started to live stream and realized, wow, there are members of our church who are traveling with their kids on a sports team. Or I know there's a woman that we talk about who had surgery, who was on her couch for over a month, but was able to still stay connected to her church. So there's so many reasons why, but picking up a book like this and reading it, and we're actually going to give away a free copy of the book on the live stream today. We'll give you the link for that. Kind of helps, if you're on the fence, kind of helps you just see what other churches are doing. But to fast forward, 5 years ago, people were really had a fear of live streaming and losing people coming in the door. Today, it's almost commonplace. And if you're not live streaming, you might be actually missing out on the opportunity to get that first connection with someone who will walk in your church's doors as they find you on Facebook and get a feel for what your church is like online, whether they're church shopping or just looking around, and then they feel more comfortable to walk into the church.
That's great feedback. Great input, Paul. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of which, we actually have your short video about your book. Do you mind if we throw that up and show show the audience out there your video?
Yeah, let's roll the clip.
All right.
Hello, my name is Paul Richards, and I'm excited to tell you that my new book, Helping Your Church Livestream, is now available. Helping Your Church Livestream is a comprehensive guide for ministry leaders, helping them spread the message of God with streaming video. Inside this book, you'll find a comprehensive guide to video production, how to accept online donations, and start streaming on social media. So when I first started writing this book, I was compelled to help connect my wife with her hometown church in Missouri. After donating a live streaming system to the Village Lutheran Church in Ladue, Missouri, I wanted to create a guide for the pastor there to help him unlock some of the opportunities available with live streaming and social media. I understood that online media would be a foreign territory for most ministry leaders, so I set out to create something that would update church leaders on all things live streaming. I also created an online training course to accompany this book for the volunteers and church media leaders alike. As time went on, I began to further my understanding of how live church services are touching the lives of people all around the world. In this book, you will hear from people like Tori Parker, who watched the Olivet United Methodist Church's candlelight service from her couch as she healed from surgery this Christmas season. You will hear from people like Miss Agnes Miner, who thanks God for the chance to watch services from her hometown church that she's moved away from more than 40 years ago. The churches that are most successful and resonate best with people are the ones delivering their messages in the places that people are listening. Those who are producing content in a form that is and makes sense in the day and age that we live in will be the ones that prosper from the fruits of new communication pathways. After working with hundreds of churches, I've set out to create an easily digestible reference guide for ministry leaders who want to leverage the power of live streaming to embolden their message. This book will include high-level overview of live streaming that answers the foundational questions and concerns about video production and live streaming inside the church. It will also include resources for online learning, a glossary of technical terms, and a narrative that provides perspective for volunteers, pastors, and tech geeks alike. After reading this book, ministry leaders will have a better understanding of the vocabulary, workflow, and growth strategies for spreading the word of God with live streaming and digital media. I like to think about live streaming as a bridge that can connect your church with the world. As you will uncover, this bridge can bring your church closer to the elderly, shut-ins, and traveling members of your church. Many of these folks may not be able to attend your church on any given Sunday physically, but together we will discover why live streaming is much more than a simple window into your church on Facebook. It can become a strategy for increased communication, outreach, and mindshare inside your local community and the world at large. So consider picking up your copy of Helping Your Church live stream. You can buy the book, you can download it on your Kindle, or you can take it for a walk in the park and listen to the audio version. And don't forget to join our Facebook user group we have that's called Churches That Live Stream, where you can see what hundreds of other churches are doing performing the Great Commission. And guess what? There's an included online course as well you can take on Udemy to further your learning. I'll see you out there.
Well, that was great. Thank you, Paul, for sharing that video with us. And I'm very excited about the book personally because, like, true confession, I wrote the chapter on Power over Ethernet, and it was amazing. If I say so myself, it was just absolutely beautiful.
I read part of it, so it's a good book. Definitely check it out.
So, Paul, if you don't, I'd like to ask, what should someone who's just starting to stream, and you were kind of my sensei here while we're learning about how to do live streaming, where would you say to somebody who's never live streamed before, where would you say to start? What would be the right place?
Well, I certainly think that watching a few live streams like this and watching some live streams of maybe local churches, if you're in that type of organization, is a great place to start. Facebook actually has what they call a live map. So Facebook, if you go to facebook.com/live map, you can see a map of all the Facebook live streams going on all around the world. And I like to look at that. When I was doing the research for my book, I would look at it on Sunday morning. And it's just incredible how many churches you'll see are the most watched live streams going on Facebook every Sunday morning. So that's a great place to start. See what other people are doing and what it takes to get started.
Great. And then maybe I can just ask the question, we've got a PoE audience. Where do you see Power over Ethernet adding the most value in live streaming?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the, I would say it's really a renaissance in video production equipment is there's a merge between PoE, which is fairly new in video production, the ability to have a robotic camera, which churches especially really have enjoyed these because they're discreet, they're small, and they allow you to have just place them almost anywhere and control them remotely. And luckily, they can be powered over Ethernet. So one of the largest costs of implementing a system traditionally was having to hire an electrician to put in a power outlet at every location, which could be in a vaulted ceiling, it could be far away. And so delivering power over the Ethernet port has been a huge thing for 2 or 3 years. Like, wow, we don't have to hire an electrician. We can control the camera over Ethernet. And then now, with something called the new tech NDI and even more AV over IP protocols, which Tyler, I'm sure you're familiar with, now that this one Cat5 cable, Cat5e and greater cable can now provide power, control, and it can now provide low latency video. So this one Ethernet cable is becoming the hub for all of your video production in many ways. And that is reducing the costs for customers significantly, but it's also improving their entire experience by living in this IP world. Now, the issue with it, obviously, is a lot of people are unsure of what an IP address is. They're unsure of what DHCP and some of the networking terms are. So luckily, Tyler, between the chapter that you wrote, which really breaks down PoE, and then the chapter that I wrote specifically on, the basics of IP networking, you can get up to speed really quickly and I think be confident enough to put in an IP-based video production system, which is really the future, and it's a lot more affordable than kind of the traditional route.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the NDI too, because in my homework for this, I went back and I watched your streams, and there are two videos that really stood out for me, and we'll throw them in the comments here. You have an NDI, actually a multicast video that you guys did, you and Tess did, that was fantastic. It talked about multicast, how multicast works, what you need to do to set it up, and then you even had a great one specifically talking about NDI, Nutex NDI, and what switches are compatible. So I really felt like those were really helpful, and we'll throw them in the comments to this video here. I didn't get the chance to put them up on the ticker, but they were really great videos. I learned a lot, and we'll also throw one up there just about what NDI is. Mm-hmm. So maybe, Paul, just for our audience today, 2 seconds, what is an NDI?
So NDI stands for Network Device Interface. It's an IP-based protocol for video production. In a simple form, it allows you to plug in an Ethernet to a camera and then receive it in low latency and high quality over your local area network into pretty much any video production and live streaming software.
And it runs on any gigabit network switch, right? So I don't have to go out and buy a new special type of piece of equipment. As long as I have a network switch that can run gigabit, and as long as NDI is installed at each end device, then NDI will allow you to transmit that broadcast quality video back and forth. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, here we are in 2019. So it's kind of surprising it took us this long to get this type of magic technology, if you will. But now this, with NDI on either side of a regular gigabit network switch, you can essentially replace what used to be an SDI video cable, which, if you've been in the video production industry, that's been the standard for so long. It's an expensive cable. It's an additional cable that you no longer have to run. It's a heavy cable too. If you're running around with hundreds of feet of SDI cable, you know how much it weighs. Ethernet's much lighter, it's much more affordable, and it runs off this Ethernet network that you may already have. If you don't already have a network in place, I'm sure you're thinking about putting one in.
You should put one in.
Has a network.
Very cool. Well, and Paul, while we're talking about this camera and broadcast quality, I was watching your live stream last week with the big announcement. Matthew Davis came on, and you guys did a really big announcement about an improvement on your camera technology. Do you want to share that with everybody here today?
Sure. So we added something called broadcast frame rates. The PTZ Optics slogan is broadcast quality made affordable. So that was a step in the broadcast realm, opening up 1080p 5994, which is a specific frame rate for broadcast television, and then 29.97, which is used in higher end broadcasts. A lot of churches and small businesses and things of that nature have no idea what that is. It's okay. It's something that at the NAB show, the National Association of Broadcasters, people really find very important. But for a very long time, and even in the future, things are moving in the direction of what everyone remembers as 1080p 30, 1080p 60. That's a frame rate. So it's a little technical, but yeah, that was a big announcement last week that we made.
Fantastic, fantastic. So for your church and your average live stream, that may not be as applicable, but it is a feature and an option that's really expanding your camera's capabilities, correct?
It is. I mean, there are a lot of churches that have Blackmagic equipment that require that type of broadcast frame rate. So it is actually quite a big deal. It's pretty technical, and you know, a lot of times you may not even need to know what that is, but it's one of those little technical things like IEEE, and Tyler did such a great job breaking down some of those technical terms in the Power over Ethernet world, that if you can get through, you know, half of what Tyler put down in this book, I think that I know I've learned so much, and it becomes less mysterious, right? There's this mysterious world. What is Power over Ethernet? How much power can you deliver to what can I power with this great new technology that doesn't require an electrician, that I can't get electrocuted by? And Tyler does a great job of explaining it. It's really interesting to me what you can power. I can't wait to see your show grow, Tyler, because it's a really interesting topic.
Well, thank you, Paul. We really like PoE. We have a lot of fun with it, and you know, we've been excited to power your cameras for a long time. One of the things that I've been really impressed with the PTZ cameras are, Paul was talking about IEEE power. The two most common standards that most people use today are PoE, traditional PoE, and that's you would see it as IEEE, so I with 3 E's. It's pronounced IEEE.
It is,
you got to
yes.
know that, because then you sound smart.
The lingo.
But it's IEEE 802.3 AF. And what that PoE does is it allows you to power any device up to 12.9 watts. But when you need to step that up, there's another standard called the IEEE 802.3 AT, and that allows you to do 25 watts. And at 25 watts, you can power a lot more things. What's really impressed me about the PTZ optics cameras is normally PTZ cameras that I see on the market today are PoE Plus, yes. And you have to upgrade your system to be able to power those. But the PTZ cameras so far that I've seen come out, and Paul, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but most of all the ones I've seen run on traditional PoE, so they keep it under that 12.9 watts. Are you guys looking at any kind of situation where you're going to expand it up to PoE Plus, or are you going to keep it at that PoE level for now?
Well, you know, it is quite nice that all of the PTZ optics cameras that support PoE are just regular PoE, because the switches are more affordable, they're more common, and you know, overall your cost will be a little lower. Although Ethernet, in the grand scheme of a camera, if you're putting in multiple cameras, the Ethernet network switch and the infrastructure is usually actually the more affordable part of it all anyway. Now, I will say, Tyler, just to not to tell anyone too much information, that we are working on a special project that hopefully will simplify the integration and installation of IP networking and streaming for customers who aren't sure what IEEE 802.11 AF is. And I think that, in my mind, whatever we can do to simplify the world of networking is going to lead to huge markets and much more success. Because, I mean, one of the things I always try to remember with our clients is that, like, most of our clients are tasked with setting up a live streaming system, but that's not their job. That's not what they do every day. They only want to do it once. They want to do it right, and then they want to focus on, you know, working with volunteers or getting the video content. Like, they're more focused on the end result, like the actual videos that are going to be on YouTube that are going to make their business more money, or the live streams on Sunday that are going to bring more people into the church. But they don't care about PoE or PoE Plus or all the technical terms. so the more that we can do to simplify the setup for them. I'm just saying, I mean, someone who's watching your show, and I don't want to discredit, are probably very technical and they enjoy the learning process of watching the show. And I thank you for watching, everybody. But I just think that the layman's out there, the general population that's getting these cameras, they want to use the cameras. They don't want to have setup issues. So I think that we have a really great opportunity to simplify network setup and really make a lot of people happy, because it really does feel like magic. I can have one network switch that's very affordable to power all my cameras, and it also is my video cable, and it's also my control cable. It's really it's all happening as we speak. I mean, it's really a renaissance.
It is. It's very powerful. And the key here that I think you hit the nail on the head is it's got to be accessible. It has to be something where you don't have to be an engineer. You don't have to be a specialist in the world of technology to do it, because to your point, that's what everybody's doing, right? I mean, you're inviting people into the space of live streaming, especially churches. And of course, they don't have these massive budgets where they can hire IT engineers to come in and set it up. They need products and systems that are accessible, that are intuitive, and I'm definitely on board with that, Paul. And that's why I'm proud of our product line and the things that we can offer our customers, is because we keep them simple, we keep them straightforward. And I'm excited, and like you said, we don't want to reveal too much, but I'm excited to be collaborating with you and Matt on this new opportunity to bring that setup and that work to a more intuitive and accessible level. And I think that's going to be very exciting. And I got a question for you, because a lot of our customers who work with cameras, they're used to working with traditional IP cameras. Your average, I'd say, Access, Amcrest. There are a lot of great brands out there that do IP cameras that you could put on your building that allow for security. And for those customers who are thinking, oh yeah, I could do a live stream, or I could set up some type of streaming system, do those cameras work? Could you use a traditional IP camera on a live stream, or do you lose something in that setup and in the technology gap between just your regular IP camera and a PTZ broadcast quality camera like you guys do?
Well, there's you certainly can actually use some IP cameras with something called RTSP. Generally, if it's built for security, that's obviously what it should be used for. And if it's built for broadcast and live streaming, it's been built that way for a reason. There's a lot of things in a PTZ optics camera that you won't find in a IP security camera. For example, the traditional video outputs that are still very commonly used, such as SDI, HDMI, RS-232, which are used for joystick controllers and broadcast. So actually everything except the Ethernet is actually really traditional broadcast quality technology. Now, a note for those who are maybe a little bit more technically inclined: when you deliver video over SDI or HDMI, that's uncompressed video. So for a lot of our customers who are concerned about the utmost quality, that would be, you'd use those traditional video cables with a PCIe or a capture card. When you use IP, you would be using something like the NewTek NDI. That is a compressed video signal. It's usually good enough for any church or most corporate scenarios. But when you get into the really nitpicky, trying to do really high definition, technically, uncompressed video is 3 gigabits or 3 gigabits of data, and a compressed video signal with NDI might only be 12 megabits. So you can imagine it's a heck of a lot more color data, and the nuances of color that is still on the traditional side. So there's that, and it mainly has to do with the control, the setup. When you have a PTZ camera in a church, you want to be able to control it, and a lot of the controls have been built in mind that there might be a pastor walking around and being able to control them. So there's a lot of details, but security cameras in general, if it's good enough to catch a license plate or capture a face, that's kind of where they stop. And then on a broadcast live streaming camera, it's usually how can we get as much quality as possible in the nuances of the color, when there's movement going on, when there's a rock band going on, when there's lights and smoke machines and all of those things. How can we, set the iris, the shutter speed, the gain, all the wide dynamic range, things that you would find maybe in a digital SLR camera that you definitely wouldn't find in a security camera.
Okay, that's very cool. That's good. I'm learning a lot, Paul. You're helping educate me.
Me as well.
So maybe another question for you. We did talk about we want to make this technology accessible. We're working very hard to do that. And in a little bit, we'll show a couple of products that we do have that do make PoE much more accessible to consumers and people who aren't specialists in the business. They're also powerful enough to support people who are more educated and knowledgeable and will want that extra power. But in the meantime, for those of us who are new or just coming up to speed and learning this, what technology topics do you need to understand when you're adding PoE to your broadcasting or your live stream?
Well, I will say, Tyler, that you may actually be better suited to answer that question as the PoE expert here. But obviously, there's something called a local area network. And even for some people just getting started, that's something that's all around us all the time that we forget about. So local area network is all the devices, whether it's your cell phone that's connected to Wi-Fi that's connected to your local area network, or it's an actual device like your computer or a printer, and kind of just understanding how that works, how IP addresses can have a limited range, and how certain, like your computer can only talk to IP devices that are in that range, for example. Just basic information like that is something that I've really been trying to explain in the book, and just help. I think people just dipping their toes in, getting to know the vocabulary. We actually have an entire glossary in the back of the book as well, just breaking down some of these different items. And then also the multicast you mentioned briefly, which is on the more advanced side, but kind of like you mentioned, like the basics are some of the things that we want you to know: local area networks, static IP addresses, how it all kind of connects. But then if the power users want to take it to the next level, there's this thing called multicast, which we also explain in the book, that really opens up these affordable gigabit network switches to be able to deliver video to hundreds of devices. It's really incredible what you can do if you know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. And those videos that you guys produced were great. I learned enough. I feel like I could do it. You and Tess do such an amazing job explaining it, making it simple and accessible. I was very impressed with the videos. And, I would say from the PoE side, really you just need to understand what you want to power, how much power you want to offer to an end device. And then what you, like you said, what you want to accomplish with it. Really simply, the kinds of things you can power with it are important to know. You definitely have your cameras, and Paul's cameras all have integrated power over Ethernet. And you also can power, for example, displays. For example, for our live stream display, for our live stream management right now, I'll hold it up. I'm using a little iPad here to manage the vMix controller here, and Maria's got another iPad, all being run over power over Ethernet to do the chat line. Speaking of which, everybody, don't hesitate to jump out and introduce yourself on the chat line. Maria's watching, and she's ready to share some of those chats. But you can do things like power an iPad with power over Ethernet. You can do things like power a controller and get the data hardwired. That's one of the things that we're really excited about. We announced on our last live stream was that power and data to iPads hardwired is here, and we're really excited about that. And that potential gives you the opportunity to, let's be honest, simplify, like you were talking about. You could, rather than trying to buy a bunch of extra equipment that's very expensive, you're not sure you're ever going to use again, you can get a good camera. You can invest. Really, you can invest in the camera equipment and then be able to use equipment that you already have, or you can reuse, to be able to do some of the more advanced functionalities. Like I'm able to control the screens here and what we broadcast. I'm very excited about that. So the magic really is, what do you power with it, and then finding the right equipment to match with that. And so, and one of the ways that we can do that, and it's a tool that I'm very excited to be able to announce at today's show, is that PoE Texas has just come out with our new PoE calculator. And this PoE calculator helps a user very quickly decide what kind of PoE they need and how it should be set up. So if it's all right, Paul, I'm going to switch us over, and I'm going to do just a quick roll just for a minute showing the new PoE calculator. And you can find that calculator. There's a whole demo video on YouTube that we just published for that. So let me swing over to that really quickly, make sure I get that set up. At the very top, we got we got stuck at the very end here. So let me see if I can get that back up and going again. Hey everybody, Tyler Andrews here with PoE Texas. I'm the head Shifu on our team, and I'm going to be taking you through a demonstration of our PoE calculator app you'll see right next door. So join me on this little tour and learn how to use this calculator app to save you time and save you money. Let's start by taking a quick look over the whole thing. You'll notice that this calculator app is now available for your phone at the App Store or on Google Play. So where you need it, online or in the App Store. So we're going to be taking a quick look at this tour on our online version. What you can see is that it's a pretty straightforward interface that will help you calculate what the line losses and your power budget needs to be for a PoE application. At the very top, all right, let's make sure we get Paul back on the screen here and get that overlay. So we're very excited about that. We've now finally have our calculator tool as an app. You can find it and download it on your phone. I have it on my phone. It's free.
I have it on mine.
Yeah. I like that. So it's a handy tool just to have, right? So when you're out there and you're trying to figure out how much power you need or where you need power, hopefully, Paul, this simplifies things. This brings it down to a very simple level for people who have never worked with PoE before. It walks you through that process.
Congratulations. That's such a great tool.
Oh, thank you, Paul. And then, and as I was mentioning to everyone, you had done a video about the types of PoE switches and PoE devices that really work best with NDI. Would you mind just doing like a quick summary? What are the highlights of that video? And like I said to everybody, we will definitely get that link out to everybody so you could see that video and go back and see Tess and Paul really go into detail, but maybe just a quick overview of it.
Yeah, so our engineers are always on the lookout for networking equipment that works well with the new tech NDI. There is some setup involved. It's not very difficult, but there are a couple things. One is if it works for IPTV, which is a popular way of distributing video around, then you probably have the right switch. One is you need to enable MDNS. DHCP is a good thing to have. And then there's something called IGMP snooping. So it's all outlined in our video. I know it's kind of technical, but there are some requirements to really have a full NDI setup with multicast enabled. And the reason why we've chosen like 2 or 3 different network switches that we know check all the boxes is if you really want to go to the multicast level, you could have without stacking up. So essentially, every NDI source requires some bandwidth, right? And if you have a gigabit switch, you have 1,000 megabits of bandwidth to to play with. And each NDI camera might only be 12 megabits, but full NDI going from, let's say, a TriCaster to a vMix system or a Wirecast to a Livestream studio can be up to 150 megabits per second. So using a technology called Multicast is generally the only way to be able to distribute one video source to, let's say, 100 students in a school, or 12 different televisions throughout a church, whether it's the lobby, the waiting room, the nursery, different overflow areas. So we get into some of the really technical implementation portions of a network switch, just the setup portion. And once it's set up properly, you should be good to go for having basically an IPTV networking system where any computer, any system connected to this IP network that you've set up is now a source or a destination for live video.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, and I happen to have Paul and we are testing out a new switch on our end that I'm excited to talk to you about, and we'll be reaching out to go in detail, that is able to handle the multicasting and the IGMP snooping, and it's got some extra power and capacity to it. So it's all right. I'm going to jump over to that one and show you a couple of new products that really make a big difference. So let's go over here to so what we've got is we've got two ranges of things, switches and mid spans, that really add to your network. What you're looking at are two EX 2005 models. The first one here, that one it doesn't have the management that you need, but it is gigabit, and it's something that's easily wall mounted. This is the kind of thing where you could put it in a box in a plenum, and it's small enough. What's cool about this one is it's actually powered by PoE. Now this one here is the new EX2005M, and it's got a management port as well, allowing you to uplink your PoE, so you could send PoE to the switch, or you could also plug it into a regular wall power supply that comes with it. Now both of these guys are designed to be mounted in a convenient location, or it's an easy way to add to your network, because if you look here, you're plugging in PoE, so you get power and gigabit data going into it. You can get power and data out of it. So if you're a small church, or you're doing something where you're not ready to invest in a huge big network infrastructure, racks, the whole 9 yards, you could do one of these switches and add it into a convenient location, a kind of spot where it would fit you best. And the EX2005 is really designed for if you already have a network switch and you already have the IGMP snooping and multicasting on your switch, you can handle it through that and just use this to expand your network. The EX2005M is there to add those features. So if you don't have a switch that's capable of doing it, you could add one of those in there. And like I said, both of these will fit into a box that you can mount into a ceiling, and that way you can add one of these to your network. Now, for those of you who already have a tool to just add PoE to any switch, and it's a very simple add PoE for adds that PoE plus. Now we have the managed EX2005 as beta, so it's going to be coming out here soon. We're going to get it tested by PTZ Optics, but we are very excited about the options that provides.
I can't wait to test that. That looks like such a perfect device for there's small NDI networks that people are trying to roll out. We're trying to help customers with that. It's a little bleeding edge, but it's right up our alley, and it's exactly what we want to try to help people understand how to use.
Thank you, Paul. So, I've done a lot of talking, and I feel like I've gone into a lot. But Maria, let's go ahead and check in with the chat line. So we're going to switch over here to the live chat, and I'm going to have to do a quick update here because I need to get Paul onto this chat here. All right, and you can see me working through this rapidly. Excellent here. So we've got
ValueNet Fiber.
Thanks for checking in, ValueNet Fiber. Appreciate it. Yeah.
And then we also have Mark joining us from Encompass AV. We'll get that link for you, Mark. Don't worry, it'll be at the end of the video. It looks like we do have some Facebook questions also. They're not quite loading into our system yet.
We've got Dominican artists chatting with Tess online. Caesar, thanks for coming on, Caesar, and joining us today. We really appreciate you attending. We're still, as you know, we're still trying to get our bugs worked out and making sure all the chat lines and links are working, and still coming up to speed on all of this technology. So I'm still got my work to do, Paul, and learn from the master.
You're doing great. I think this is awesome for one of your first live streams, and it's all about the content and the conversation. This is a very interesting topic for a lot of people. It's mysterious in a lot of ways, which makes our job good because people need to learn. They need a resource for this type of thing, and some of those products you're showing are very, very interesting. I can't wait to get my hands on them and test them out, because that's the kind of stuff all of our customers are looking for. How can we simplify PoE in an affordable box that can support all of the the newer IPTV streaming settings that are required?
Yes. Well, Paul, maybe while we're waiting for some chats to come in, do you have any questions your customers would be interested in, your audience, the people you work with, they'll be interested to ask from us here at PoE Texas, and Marie and I can give it a shot and give some answers?
Well, I know that a lot of our customers have networks in place, right? So they have a network, but they might not have enough PoE ports to support the cameras that they want to put in. And I read your book, but I want you to answer this one. I read your chapter in the book. If you have a network switch, doesn't have enough PoE ports, but we want to add 3 or 4 PoE cameras to our setup, what's the easiest way without needing to call an IT manager to add those extra ports of PoE?
Well, Maria, go for it.
It's a little bit of a delay on my end. I apologize.
Marie was asking. Sorry, we're working on our audio.
Yes.
He's asking, what's the easiest way to add 3-4 ports of PoE onto an existing infrastructure? Let's say I'm a church. Mm-hmm. I've got my little switch that I've been using for years. I like it. It's reliable. I've got it all set up. It's my router. Let's be honest. I'm not exactly excited to try and start my live streaming career by calling up an IT guy to install a whole bunch of equipment. So what's the best and easiest way to add PoE to an existing setup that you may have?
I would say just get an injector. First, figure out how many cameras, what your setup's going to be, how many devices you're going to power, and then from there, you can get an injector. I know us personally, we have single port all the way up to 24 port, so it's a wide array of options for you to choose if you needed to have that many devices, and then you'll be able to just quickly add PoE to that existing infrastructure using that switch that you have without having to rip that away and installing an entirely new switch or setup.
Yes, and that's pretty powerful, Paul, because there's nothing worse in my mind. This is coming from live experience. I did this a few months ago. We decided to upgrade our network infrastructure, and I thought I'd be so brave and so smart. And I got this guy, IT guy, came in, and he spent, he said, "Oh, I'll have it done in a Saturday afternoon." And sure enough, 3 months later, he's still tinkering to get all the ports talking and all the devices going. And at that point, it's not even about the money. It's not about the cost of the hardware. It was about the headache and the pain that comes from just trying to get new network infrastructure set up and working.
Yeah. Nobody likes to fight against the IT department. You never win that battle. Yeah, before you even say hello, there's been so many technical words spoken that you can't argue with them. So you pretty much everybody just accepts what they get from their IT department, whether it's the University of Southern California that I was just at last week, talking to them, to a small church that just has a system that works. So it's great to know that there are options from PoE Texas that we can just add an injector without having to really rethink the network or put any new kind of essential pieces in, and we can just kind of add to the existing system.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Well, Paul, you've been an excellent guest host on our show, and I feel like I've learned a lot.
I definitely have.
It's been very educational,
very informative.
I'm going to encourage everybody out there, definitely go check out the PTZ Optics YouTube channel, Facebook page, subscribe, become a member. You're going to learn a lot. I do. I watch Paul and Tess all the time, and I feel like I'm getting a great education. And I'm very excited to have you on our show, Paul. So thank you very much for coming.
Go download his book.
Yeah, you can get it for free.
That's true.
That you can't beat that price. And Paul, that was an extremely generous offer to offer the audience today a free copy of your book. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. It's really about helping everybody succeed in this world that every month there's a new product. Luckily, there are standards out there that we all follow, and you can learn about them, and it's really the foundational learning that's really going to help you in the future. So I thank you so much for having me, both you guys. I really appreciate it. Tyler, it was great as always. Maria, very nice to meet you, and thanks, everybody.
Yes, thank you. So we're going to switch over to thank you again, everybody, for joining us today here at Converge PoE. It's been a great ride. This is our second show.
Yes.
We're still learning a lot. We're still improving. So we really appreciate all of you sticking with us, even with some of the technical questions and some of the technical issues. And so thank you very much for coming. And join us again in 2 weeks, March the 5th. We're going to have another guest host. His name is Rob Rollo. And we're going to be talking about solar power PoE. Now, what's cool about that is now you can go off grid and still get the same power and capacity of a network device.
Yes.
So Rob is going to be talking to us about solar PoE and about how everything works. So it's an exciting show. I'm working with Rob to do a project putting up a solar powered PoE camera. So join us March 5th with Rob Rollo, and we will see you there.